Ships or Shipsy? Only you can decide. Find out more at shipzorz.com. Good morning, everyone, and happy Tuesday. I just realized that I don't have my personal LinkedIn up, so just bear with me as I get that started. Hope you guys are having an amazing start to the week. What are we in? Second week of February, and Valentine's Day is coming up, although I think it's going to be a very different Valentine's Day for everybody considering the pandemic right now. So before I bring up Audrey, let's talk a little bit about what's happening on Let's Talk Supply Chain this week. Good morning, Erin. So we've got a brand new episode with Wes, the CEO of Logistics Titans. I don't know if you guys remember this, but he was on the show last year. I think it was the middle of last year. And they went through all sorts of transitions in 2020, and they really focused on last mile. He went through a lot of acquisitions, and they're doing some amazing things in last mile. They're talking about how they are working with their drivers and giving them a checklist. So when they're going to deliver the freight, they're going in with a checklist of things that they have to, an electronic checklist of things that they have to go through in order to deliver that cargo and get the approval by the customer. So we're talking all about that and so much more on this episode. So I highly recommend that you go and check this out, because this has been one of my favorite episodes, talking about last mile and how they're sort of changing the game. So that one is episode 177, wherever you subscribe to the Let's Talk Supply Chain podcast, or you can go to podcasts at letstalksupplychain.com. And if you see that category filter right here, so you can actually scroll by category. So if you have a challenge in your supply chain or your business, you can scroll through these categories and really pick the episodes to listen to based on the challenge that you might be having. And so I hope you guys all do that. What's next? Oh, we've got lots of events coming up. So let's talk about these. And so I am going to be talking to Sarah Scudder with ISM New Jersey on February 24th, I think. At 1 p.m. Eastern. So hopefully you'll register for that. Just to let you guys know, over on our Let's Talk Supply Chain LinkedIn page, we tell you all of the events that's coming up on a Sunday, and we pin that post to the top of our LinkedIn page so that you can get an idea of what's coming up. And if you want to register for any of the events, the registration links are in there as well. So February 24th, and then February 16th, I am emceeing the Leadership Summit in partnership with Four Kites. Again, the registration link is in that post that we pin at the top of our LinkedIn page. Of course, we've got TPM 21 coming up. I think there's a lot of people that are excited about this. There's a lot to talk about, right? There's a lot going on in freight right now, in logistics, and they're going to be covering some of the biggest topics there as well. And then last but not least, we've got Forge Supplier Diversity Conference. And so I'm going to be hosting a fireside chat as a part of this conference on Thursday, February 25th. We've got the registration link on the LinkedIn page as well. The other thing that I want to talk to you guys about is Clubhouse. I don't know if you guys know or have heard about Clubhouse, but it's a little addicting. It is the new app. It's in beta. It's invite only, and it's pretty incredible. So it's all audio based, and you're having conversations with people all over the world. And so I'm running a supply chain room on Wednesdays and Fridays at 12 p.m. Eastern, just for an hour. It's a lunch break conversation with a bunch of supply chain professionals, and would love to see you there if you are on Clubhouse. It's also just open to iPhone users right now, and hopefully they are going to open that up to Android as well. One last thing, we want to give a big shout out and congratulations to Naomi Garnis. She is on our team here at Let's Talk Supply Chain, and she got married, and I got to watch virtually on Sunday. So we want to send a big congratulations out to her. All right, without further ado, it is time to bring up Audrey. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good. Congratulations to Naomi.
I know. It was amazing. Honestly, my first ever virtual wedding. And
it's been a lot of first ever virtuals, hasn't it?
It was live streamed over YouTube, and it was so beautiful. She's out in Arizona, and it was great. So
yeah,
really, really good. So for anybody that doesn't know you, do you want to
do a quick? I'm so bad. I just assume I'm like, who doesn't know me?
And I didn't do an introduction today either. So we're both.
Well, you're Sarah Barnes-Humphrey. You're based here in Milton. Host of Let's Talk Supply Chain, host and founder. I'm Audrey. I'm here in Toronto, Canada. Snowy. I can't say it's freezing cold because like other places in Canada like just laugh at you. But minus 10°C, it's refreshing. I'm a logistics and custom specialist at Orchard Custom Beauty. So that's cosmetics, beauty tools, bath accessories. We won a couple awards. We came second place in a great award from which society was that? DPSM recently. Anyways, check my LinkedIn and you can see it all there.
Yeah, so I am not live on my personal LinkedIn page for some reason. I needed to check the link. But anyways, going back to talking about how cold it is here, on Saturday, I went tobogganing in minus 18 degrees. Now, for anybody who has watched Thoughts and Coffee for a while now, they know that I hurt my back in December, and so I haven't been able to do any of that. So on Saturday, I finally was able to toboggan. The only thing was it was minus 18.
Yeah.
And as you're tobogganing down the hill, the snow's coming in your face. And by the time I got back up that hill, I think I had ice crystals all over my back. So that was fun, like really fun.
It's so fun though.
It is a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Did you get out this weekend?
Not too much. Been working on a couple of secret projects. Yeah. I was out on Friday, and then I did a little walk in my neighborhood, and just kind of around the block. This is the first year that I've been doing walks with no purpose. Just to get outside. Like, no, I'm the kind of person it's like I'm going somewhere, and walking is just the transportation mode to get me to that place.
Right.
So now it's like, not that I wouldn't go hiking, but with friends. And so since I can't do anything with people, it's just like, oh, go for a walk by yourself that's directionless with no purpose. You're like, yeah, okay. So
that's so funny. All right. So let's get into this. We've got the question of the week first. So the question of the week is, what is your favorite thing about working in supply chain? So if people don't know, we do a question of the week every single Wednesday morning on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, what am I missing? Facebook. And so we're asking a question of you every single week. So what is your favorite thing? Tell me.
That's easy. The people in supply chain.
Yes. Okay. Well, I asked it like last year, and a lot of people said the people as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Because I mean, the sense of adventure too, because you really never know what's going to happen day to day, because like I was saying to you this morning, apparently I might need a French VAT number now because I don't have enough VAT numbers in Europe. Apparently I'm going to get one in every member state. Or my stuff that fell off the boat maybe last week or last month.
Well, we're going to be talking about that.
Yeah. I don't know if it fell off. So that's a fun adventure that, you kind of will find out about.
Well, Nick posted on LinkedIn this morning about courage, and I was like, every day takes courage. Every single day, especially in supply chain, because you're dealing with new things all of the time.
Yeah.
Okay, so every day takes courage and coffee. Is that what you're trying to say? All right, that's why we have Thoughts and Coffee.
Exactly.
So I think for me, my favorite thing about working in supply chain are the people. I have a really great time, doing things like Thoughts and Coffee and, the podcast. And also, I think making an impact, right? Blended has really
Yes.
shown me that people are really open, especially in supply chain, to talking about some of the hard topics and being genuine.
Yes.
People want to open up. People want to talk about the uncomfortable
Yeah.
conversations and really
Yeah.
get down to, what makes a difference. And so, that also comes down to people, but
Yeah.
those are some of my favorite things about supply chain. And then obviously logistics. I've been in
Yeah.
logistics for over 20 years. And so logistics to me is just a lot of fun. So,
Yeah.
anyways, we are asking that question every single Wednesday
Mhm.
morning. So, if you want to weigh in on that, make sure to go to our LinkedIn page tomorrow morning so that you can weigh in and you will actually be featured on an upcoming episode. So, make sure to do that. All right. So, next is my thoughts and coffee post. So, I
Yes.
saw this picture, okay, last week, and I was like, I didn't know how I felt about it because, some of the apps under Gen X I use, and I'm a
Yeah.
millennial. And
Yeah.
then some of the apps under millennials I've never even heard of.
Yeah.
And then some of the apps under Gen Z I use. So I was like, how accurate is this? And then I know what we've been talking about age. And I was in a Clubhouse room the other day and they were talking about age because it was a 40 plus room.
Yeah.
And we were talking about the word old. And so I was
Yeah.
sitting there listening, and they were like, we really need to talk to the younger generation and everybody who uses the word old because there's negative connotations around it.
Mhm.
So older people
Mhm.
think of the word old as a bad thing,
Oh,
right? I'm getting older. I am retired. I'm not
right.
doing as much as I used to do, right? And so
Right.
it's kind of a mental health issue for a lot of people
Yes.
around
Yeah.
this word, which doesn't get spoken about too much. And so I thought it was really interesting how they want to go to the younger generation and talk about this word because to a 5-year-old, 27 is old, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
A 27-year-old doesn't feel old.
No.
And so how do we turn that into more of a positive, right? Wise, mature, experience, that kind of thing. So they were talking about the different words that we can use. And that's what
Right.
inspired this
Yes.
post for Sunday. So when you saw that, and we got a ton of comments
It's
on
a
this.
ton. Yeah.
So what did you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's like a couple of different I think it's like a couple of different things where we're sort of pushed these ideas or these myths are perpetuated.
Mhm.
Um and like the idea that once and especially for women get hit hard with this, like, oh, if you're not a young woman, like you're invisible, no one wants to hear from you. So I think there's a lot of stuff that sort of plays out maybe in the world or in people's, we make our brains try to make generalizations and compartmentalize, right? And
Yeah.
so I think we have to do some work on a couple of different fronts, but on age as well, where it's like, when we do have this idea that, people who've been in, like I've been at Orchard for 15 years, and I'm sure people are like, wow, maybe you should, get a different job, or like what
Well,
that's
people don't stay
that's
in jobs for that
static.
long.
Yeah, that's very static or stagnant potentially, right? So, you get all of these different things, right? And I think what people are really trying to get at is that people who are older, may be more resistant to change. But again, that's just generalization. When you meet
Yes.
people where they are,
Mhm.
that might be true, but it also might be untrue. So I think, we have to, we're sort of in that, you know, elder millennial where it's like, to look at some of the younger set, the Gen Z that's coming up, I wouldn't say, oh, they don't have any experience. They've already lived like 20 something years in life. Like you have
Right.
all sorts of different experiences. And then when you look at the older set, like, like my grandparents describe themselves as Zoomers, which is technically Gen Z is being described as Zoomers. But my grandparents are actually like the Great Depression. They're like the greatest generation, but identify as boomers
Mhm.
and then turned it into Zoomers because they know how to use technology and they're cool. So, I mean, I think it's just,
Well, I
you
think it's
know, it's
not
your
only
mindset. It's like, it's you
yeah,
also being compassionate and meeting people where they are. But
yeah.
these generalizations, right? Like,
I think that's
stop.
the
I don't
big
know.
point is the generalization, right? Like
Yeah.
this photo
Yeah.
right here generalizes people by the apps that they use. And
Yeah.
so part of my question was, is this really accurate? And should we be, generalizing people by the apps they use as to what
No.
age they are?
No.
I also think that, there's other things that have come out that put a negative connotation around it too, is kind of like that
Yes.
okay boomer,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Where it's like,
Yeah.
we're listening to you, but not really listening to you. And so it's
Yeah.
a derogatory sort of comment about that
Yes.
generation. And
Yes.
I just think that we need to really get away from that, because I think from a mental health standpoint, when we think about mental health, we don't
Yeah.
really think about age, but it affects each one of us very
Yes.
differently.
Yeah.
And, when you turn 30,
Mhm.
sometimes that affects people really bad when you turn, especially depending on where you are in life, right? And what
That's
you've
some of it
done,
too. Yeah.
what you've
Yeah.
accomplished, what you have in your life, what you wanted to see out of your
Yeah.
life, maybe haven't done, right? So I think there's a lot attached to age,
Yeah.
and there's a lot attached to the word old. And I think there's a lot attached to things around age that we need to break down so
Yeah.
that we can have more compassion for each other and we can have more compassion for ourselves,
Yeah.
right? Because we put so much pressure on ourselves for different milestones in our lives and what that looks
Oh
like
yeah.
and everything like that. So,
And yet
anyways,
you see out in the world that people don't, like it's this idea that it's like, oh, if I have to do this by 25, I have to, like, my grandmother had 4 kids by 25. Was that my goal? Like, no. Like we all have
yeah,
it worked out well for her because she got me, but like we all have different goals.
right,
But what is it? Like comparison is the thief of joy,
right.
right? Is that the quote? I think comparison is the thief. It's like when you're looking at everyone else, it I think really erodes your sense of success. And success doesn't have to be defined by others or defined externally, right? Like,
Or by your age.
or by your age. Like, it's not this thing, okay, you turn 40, you turn 45. Like, oh my gosh, what happens? Guess what? Nothing. Like,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
nothing
So
really
anyways,
happened.
I wanted to talk about that. It doesn't
Yeah.
get talked about a lot, and, so if you wanna check that out, it's over on my personal
Yeah.
profile. So now we need to get into
Oh, our articles. Yeah.
our articles. Alright, so
I'm
the
clapping a
first
lot.
one. Sorry?
I'm clapping a lot. I don't know. I don't know why.
It's okay.
I'm
You
overtired.
and I are on minimal
No
sleep.
sleep.
We may as well just tell everybody. So if this doesn't seem as normal as it usually does,
Yeah.
it's because Audrey and I are a
We're
little sleep
sleep
deprived.
deprived. Yeah.
For some reason, neither of us could get to sleep last night.
No.
All right. So the first article is
Mm.
again from The Hustle. You guys know that that's one of my favorite sources. And actually, I don't know if you guys know this, but HubSpot just bought The Hustle last week.
Mm.
So it'll be interesting to see if this changes. I hope it doesn't change because I really like some of these articles. So the first article is about remote working and what that's going to mean to our super cities. So this was the first time that I'd kind of seen that term super cities. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, that, New York, LA, some of those are major
Toronto.
cities, but I never really heard of them as super cities. But anyways, the whole point of this article is talking about what the pandemic and remote work has done to not only where people are working and what they're looking to do with their lives, right? Because essentially a lot of people moved to these super cities because they needed to be close to the office and they were going into the office every day. Well,
Yeah.
that's completely changed with the pandemic. And I don't know about you, but I am talking to a lot of people where they're going to go back to a hybrid model.
Yeah.
And so they're not going to be going back to the office every single day. They're
No.
going to be working remotely for a couple of days a week. They're going to be going into the office a few days a week. And so, what is that going to do to not only our cities, right? The major cities that they're talking about here, but also our commercial real estate, because then you don't
Yeah.
really need to have that big of a footprint anymore. Because most
Yeah.
of, you're doing that hybrid. So you don't have as many people in the office every
Or
single day.
hoteling, right? Like you're doing that hoteling thing where it's like I wouldn't have a desk. I would have access to a
Right.
desk with amenities, and then I'd pop in, and then my coworker would pop in the day after, that sort of
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know what you thought about this article. I thought it was kind of cool. I've got some notes over here. They said that 42% of founders right now are thinking about remote first and in office work second.
It's a big cost. I mean, we just before, like, what do we think? 4 or 5 years before the pandemic, we'd seen the rise of those companies like WeWork and The Wing, and coming in with all of these temporary, like, rentable office spaces, or you have clubs like Soho House where it's like you pay a membership and can use their facilities. So that was really sort of taking off for people who were doing freelance, and now that everybody's sort of looking at the costs, I even wonder here at Orchard, because we have two offices locally, and yeah, it's like, are they just gonna kind of move to one, right, and then just do a different warehouse situation? So yeah, it's that thing too. They were talking about wages, because I've seen a couple of articles where it's like, oh, well, if people aren't going to live in San Francisco, then we're not going to pay them the wages that they need to live in San Francisco. And you're like, well, weren't you paying them for the good job and hard work that they did, not their address? Like, because you forced them to live in San Francisco, which was expensive. Like, you could have picked, I don't know, Winnipeg, and you didn't, because it's cold. But
very cold,
because it's so cold.
But I mean, think about all of, like, depending on what this looks like, and we still don't know what it's going to look like.
No, we're still in it.
Yeah, think about the potential for empty buildings in those cities, and how are we going to make up for that? There's a lot of skyscrapers, there's a lot of real estate in those super cities, and if we're not using those, what happens to it?
Well, maybe we can pick the nicest ones and use those, and then the ugly ones we can tear down or make, like, we were talking about this, 2 weeks ago, vertical farming.
Yes.
We could do vertical farming in the ugly buildings.
Oh, there you go.
And then do more like rooftop parks and things. So there's...
So you've got a couple of comments about your Winnipeg comment. Okay. Davin said, who picks Winnipeg? No kidding.
Lots of
And
people.
Peter says Winterpeg. Yes. So if nobody knows Winnipeg, go and look it up. It is very cold right now, I think.
It's minus 34, feels like minus 43 with the wind chill like this. My cousin lives in Winnipeg, so that's why I joke about Winnipeg. And he sent me a screen, and it's like he posted a screenshot, and the weather was just, how it's like partly sunny, partly cloudy. It's like ice crystals.
Look, Davin says, even Winterpeg wouldn't pick Winnipeg. We're not sure. We're not sure why people live there. Anyway,
Canadian jokes.
Okay. So, hashtag Canadian jokes. Okay. For any of the Americans in the audience, we are having a moment. So anyways, let's go to the next article. So this is kind of a two-parter. Because Allison and Demo, who are very good friends of the show, they were posting about this article, and we've seen way too much of this, right? What they're talking about is that this is the 5th reported overboard in 2 months. I don't know if you guys remember. I think it was late November, early December. One had one of the biggest container over
2,500.
Yeah, 2,500 overboard, and it's just been snowballing ever since. And so what do you do? I mean, think about it. Like last week, we talked about Long Beach and LA having a really big backup, and that's going to affect product on shelves into, Christmas this year. Yeah. And then you finally get your container on the boat, and the boat is moving. And then there's a potential for it going overboard. And this is the most that we've seen ever, I think. And so what is going on? Audrey, you're our resident expert. Please tell me.
Well, since I'm personally affected, because I might have a container that's overboard, but I don't know yet, because of course there's a process. I think when we're talking with Allison, is a super maritime lawyer out of Melbourne, Australia. So she knows all of these details and the contract law around them. But she was saying that normally it's like, 6 to 12 containers a year tops. And we've lost 2,500 off of one vessel. I think 300 in the December vessel, or 200 in the December vessel, 750 off the vessel that I'm affected by. And then this one, I think, lost, it wasn't as many, about 40 or 45. So that's massive. And I think what no one's really talking about, like the explanations given are very casual. It's like, oh, well, there was high waves and they just were knocked off. Okay,
I
because of
know,
course
but I
right.
mean, how many
But
high
why are
waves have
there
we had in years? I
right?
mean,
But
I
is it
don't
climate
understand.
change?
Well, yes, that could be
Is it
one.
terribly high waves and this is going to continue because of weird wind patterns and shifts because, you know,
Yeah.
or potentially I saw someone allude to it's possible that with the seafarers crisis, with, we still have, these 300,000 seafarers mostly stuck on vessels that they've been stuck on since late 2019. Is it the fatigue, the mental health breakdowns, that
Mhm.
it's just overtired, disillusioned?
Overworked.
Like, is it overworked? Is it just, these kinds of errors? Is it an error? Is it, weird climate change effects? Like, what's going on? Because it's just so significant.
Well, and Aaron says, are they stacking the containers too high?
No
I
more
think
than normal.
yeah, and I think it's
No.
only anyone's guess at this point, right? Because it could be anywhere from the seafarers actually on the vessel, maybe. It could be
Yeah.
the stevedores, I think, at the
How
port,
they're
and
packing.
how
Yeah.
many people that they have, on ground
And I
to
know,
actually work, right? Because that's the
yeah.
trouble that we're seeing in Long Beach and LA. And one of the
Yes.
reasons why I wanted to highlight Allison's post here. So Demo actually posted
Mhm.
it first and asked Allison, it seems like the new normal on cargo loss is taking place.
Yeah.
And Demo is out of Panama. And then Allison wrote back with some of the things that you should be considering
Yes.
because of all of these things that are happening. And so
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons why I wanted to highlight this. If you're not following Allison, you definitely should
Yes.
follow Allison. She's a
Awesome.
great, great shipping lawyer out of Australia. And
Yeah.
so what she's saying is how many more incidents before this becomes a risk for companies to take seriously, right? Because this is a
Yeah.
major risk. This has
Yeah.
happened 5 times in 2 months. This is
Yeah.
not going away. And
Yeah.
so what she says to do is number one, check your insurance. What does
Yeah.
it cover? What are you covered for? Because there's a lot to be desired if you're leaving that on the table. Number
Yeah.
two, check your supply chain contracts.
Who's
Absolutely,
responsible?
absolutely essential. And then number three, check your options for replacement cargo, timing, cost, and availability. All really, really, really important considerations when we're
Mhm.
seeing this as a new normal or even considering it as a new
Yeah.
normal. I mean, that to me is just mind blowing in
Oh my
itself.
gosh.
But if it's going to be happening, we've got to figure out how to protect ourselves. And so
Yeah,
that's,
because I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, like you get cargo insurance, you kind of like, I've had maybe one thing have an issue on the vessel coming over. And I mean, I've been doing this for a while and then literally 3 months and it's like five vessels. And you're like, that's weird. Like, I really need to look into this because you were kind of a bit complacent about it before. Davin makes a really good point, though. I've seen that too, where, yeah, we thought like VGM and Rebecca here popping in VGM
Oh,
requirements were supposed to take care of that, but people misdeclare cargo. People aren't as
it is.
diligent about these sorts of things. And yeah, with the situation with COVID where we're rushing and it's like you're just so thankful to get everybody's just thankful to try to keep everything moving, but maybe we've lost a bit of our diligence and accuracy. And so then yeah, if you're stacking containers that are too heavy on top of the light ones, then they're going to tip over if it's windy or wavy. So
Well, and Peter makes a good
oh
point,
yeah.
right? Because
Like the
they've
boats are full. Yeah.
eliminated, yeah, they've eliminated a bunch of the fleet, and
Yeah.
so they're packing everything into a smaller fleet of vessels, and
That's
so
true.
that could definitely be part of that. All right, we have one
Yeah.
more minute left, and we have one more to go. So this is the last one. We're going to talk about this really quickly. I
Yeah.
really wanted to talk about electric vehicles because obviously
Yes.
it's something they're saying that 10% of the market by 2025 are going to be electric vehicles. But what they're talking about is the importation of batteries. And I don't know about you, but I used to
Yes.
import a lot of batteries, dangerous goods. They are a
No.
horrible, horrible, horrible commodity to import. And what they're talking about is bringing the manufacturing of batteries
Here.
stateside so that they can be able to, well, actually, what they're talking about is 600% increase in production over 5 years.
Yeah.
And Biden has said that he's giving $5 billion in battery tech. So
Nice.
you might want to check this out. If you're in supply chain, if you're in procurement, go and check some of the companies out in this article, because they're the ones that are going to be setting the trend for the production in stateside for these electric vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're definitely going to need your knowledge. So if you're thinking about where you want your career to go, or if you're looking for another part of the industry to bring your knowledge to, the reason why I wanted to bring this one to the forefront is because I think this is an emerging market
Yes.
that we really, really need to be taking a look at from a career perspective.
And Europe's taking a different tact because they're bringing in legislation on what they call right to repair. So instead of you tossing your phone into landfill, it's like the company is responsible for then reusing, breaking, like they're just sort of forcing that circular supply chain onto electronics companies to prevent those. I mean, these are highly extractive materials too, so to keep them in the chain, instead of consumers just kind of, what do I do with this? I guess landfill. So Europe's kind of taking that avenue. The US is trying to do like the sure shoring, near shoring piece. So it's interesting.
Yeah. So go check that out. We've got all the articles in the comments for you. Appreciate all of you for joining us. We are 1 minute over, but I'm so glad that we got a chance to do this. Audrey, I'm not sure who the guest is going to be next week. Audrey might be back, so we're going to keep it a mystery until next week. But thank you guys all for joining us, and we hope you have an amazing week, everybody.
Yeah.